Welcome to DevOps Hub. This is Sampath Shivkumar Bodeti. Hope you all are doing great. I am Certified Solution Architect Associate, Certified Terraform Associate. I have done certification in Kubernetes like CKA, CKAD, CKNA, and Prometheus as well. So DevOps Hub is a platform which is going to help the people who want to upskill themselves in the area of like cloud and DevOps. We help you in getting certified. We provide trainings and support. So what we are going to discuss today? Today we are going to discuss how to install a Docker and Minikube in WSL. So let's get started. So let's start with the question of what is WSL. So WSL stands for Windows Subsystem for Linux. Okay. WSL stands for Windows Subsystem for Linux, but why do we need WSL? What is the purpose? Assume you are a user, you are working on your PC which is having a Windows operating system. Due to some reasons you want to work with Linux distributions like Ubuntu, Fedora, Red Hat, right? For executing some Linux commands, executables. So how can you work with Linux distributions on your Windows PC or laptop? So what you can do in this scenario is, one, you can install one more OS, that is Linux OS, in parallel with Windows, that is dual boot, and you can, whenever you having a requirement to work with Linux distributions, you can log in as a Linux OS. But if you don't want to do so, then there is one more option, that is installing virtualization software such as VMware, Oracle VMware, Fusion, Workstations, and WSL, that is Windows Subsystem for Linux. Another option is we can go with cloud provider by like AWS, Azure, GCP. What you can do is simply you can create an account online, log into that account. It can be in AWS, Azure, or GCP. Create some VMs, SSH to those VMs from your PC and work on those Linux distributions. You can execute Linux commands, workloads on these VMs. So these are the different options available for you if you are looking to work with Linux distributions by executing some Linux commands, etc. So WSL is nothing but a virtualization software which comes by default with Windows. So if your OS is Windows 10 or above, then WSL will come by default. Like I am using Windows 10, you can see. So WSL will come by default for me. I don't need to install it as a third party one, right? So what WSL will do is, WSL is nothing but a compatible layer for running Linux binary executables natively on Windows. It allows users to run a Linux distributions such as Ubuntu, Debian, Fedora directly on Windows machine without the need of any third-party virtualization software or dual boot setup. So let's see the architecture of WSL. As I have told you, I am already working with Windows 10, so my OS will have a Windows kernel. In order to work with Linux distributions, it's obvious that we cannot work with Windows commands or executables on top of Windows kernel directly. So WSL is nothing but a compact layer which is just above the Windows kernel, act as an interface and allowing the users to run their Linux workloads directly on Windows without installing any third-party apps. So it's going to help for the people who want to work with cross-platform environment like Windows and Linux. So as we are discussing about WSL is having two versions. One is WSL 1, WSL 2. Initially when WSL came, WSL 1 was the original one. Recently WSL 2 has came, which is very lightweight and advanced, very speed when compared to WSL. So as we are going to install Docker and Minikube on WSL, so Docker we can install on WSL 1, but it doesn't support all Docker features. So for having a good experience, let's go with WSL 2, which includes a full Linux kernel, which is a lightweight VM enabling native Linux system call handling. So how do you know my system is going with WSL 1 or WSL 2? We will look at it. So before going ahead with the installation of Docker and Minikube, so what's the prerequisite is? The only prerequisite is you have to make sure the feature is turned on your Windows OS, that is nothing but Windows Subsystem for Linux. Where you can turn on this feature is just click the start button, type feature. You can see turn Windows feature on and off option of control panel. Just click that one. A pop-up will come. Here by dragging down your cursor, you can see at bottom there is one check mark, Windows Subsystem for Linux. In order for you to proceed with WSL, this is the first prerequisite, first and only prerequisite. It is already enabled in my PC. If this is not enabled on your PC, just check that one and click OK. Then you have to restart your PC. As it is already enabled in my PC, I don't need to restart my system. I can directly start my installation flow. So let's go to Chrome, search for WSL documentation, install WSL. So this is the official documentation. Here you can see couple of commands. So WSL -- install is the command to start with. You can go to command prompt run as administrator and give the command WSL -- install. So what's it's going to do? As I already told you, WSL is going to help you working with Linux distributions. So Ubuntu is one of the distributions of Linux. So by default, when I have given the command WSL -- install, it has started installing Ubuntu. So you may have a doubt, then Sampath, what if I don't want to go with Ubuntu? I want to go with another distribution. Well, here are the commands. You can see like WSL -- install -d. You can give the distribution name here. So the default distribution which WSL select is Ubuntu, and Ubuntu is my choice too. So I don't want to disturb. So now you can see it has installed the Ubuntu. Now it's asking me to give a username. So I am going to give my name. It's asking a password. Please set a password. You have to retype, confirm the password. That's it. Password is updated successfully. The operation is completed successfully. Now it will take some time for initialization. Then you are ready to work with your Ubuntu OS, Linux distribution Ubuntu. You can see now this is not a normal command prompt. This is not Windows 1. If you can see from here, it's showing who am I. I'm already logged in as a Sampath user. Let's check etc OS release. So you can see now it is not Windows command prompt. It is nothing but I have logged into my Ubuntu machine, right? So you can see the working directory, present working directory is root. This is the file system. So this is how WSL is going to work with Linux distribution and Ubuntu is the distribution. By default it will install. If you are interested in selecting or going with Fedora or something else, I have shown you the command. You can go like that. So now, as we are already logged in as a Sampath user in Ubuntu, now what our next step is install Docker, right? So let's open Google and Docker installation on Ubuntu. So this is the official page. So here are a couple of commands, prerequisites. It's showing installation methods. I want to go with Docker apt repository way. So let's execute these commands one by one. So I'm updating by updating the Ubuntu OS like with sudo apt get update command. Once it is done, I will go and install the CA certifications. Just we have to follow the official documentation command one by one. It's done. So installing the CA certifications, giving permissions to specific directory, that is etcd/apt/keyrings with 0755. Just follow the commands as per the official documentation without any typos or missing any character. Just cross check. Now let's add the repository. And update it once again after doing configuration changes. It's done. Now we have to simply install. This command is going to install the Docker CE, CLI, container IO, all the required packages. Just give S. That's it. We are done. So now we have successfully installed the Docker on Ubuntu. That's it. It's done. So how you can verify it is done or not is simply by executing the docker command. Here you can verify it using sudo docker run hello world. So before executing this command, let me check the status of containerd or docker service docker status. You can see the docker daemon is running successfully. So now you can give the command sudo docker run hello world. So you can see the moment I have given this, the image hello world is not available locally. It is fetching from Docker Hub and showing the output. But if I do give docker ps command, it's not going to work because the user Sampath user is not having the privilege. So what to do is just go to Linux post installation. Here it is asking to create a Docker group. I know already, as we have installed Docker group will be already installed. Let me show you. See, it's showing already it is installed. Just we need to add the current user to the Docker group so that this user can execute Docker, get privilege of executing Docker commands. So right, we have added the Sampath user. Now we have to refresh it. This command, what it will do is immediately reflect the changes whatever we have done till now. So now you can execute any docker command like docker ps, docker images. You can see everything is working fine. So what we have done, using WSL, we have installed a Linux distribution which is nothing but Ubuntu. In that Ubuntu we have installed the Docker. Now what is our next step is install the Minikube. So let's go with the documentation. So we need kubectl command. It's a command line utility tool. So let's install this one before installing Minikube and initializing it. So it's on Linux. I will go with this option. Just we need to follow the official documentation step by step without leaving any character while copying. That is the main thing. You have to cross check it. Now we have to validate the binary. It's an optional, but we will go with that. Oh, it's already showing some failure writing command to the destination, right? We do one thing, we go with native package manager, right? It is Debian. Let's go with these options. When you are going to work with Red Hat, you can go with Red Hat based distributions. So as we are going with Ubuntu, we are going with Debian distribution. We are adding these keys. Make sure the command doesn't break anywhere. You are copying exactly as per official documentation. That's it. We are done, almost done. Just update it. Once it is updated, now you can install Kubelet. Done. See, kubectl, you are able to see the commands of kubectl: create, expose, run. So now what's the next step is, let's install Minikube. So this is the official page. So what is the prerequisite to install Minikube is, we have to have minimum 2 CPUs, 2 GB free memory. Most important is that container or virtualization machine manager, such as Docker, HyperKit, these things. So out of these things, what we are having is, already we have installed Docker, so we are ready to go. Coming to installation, what is the distribution? We are going with Ubuntu, that is nothing but Linux. If you are not sure about the architecture, just check it, like uname -m It's architecture x860_64. So we are ready with stable version. Let's go with Debian package. Copy this command, just paste it. Now install it. It's done. Now to start your cluster, you have to give a command minikube start. So once you give a minikube start, what it will do is it will check whether Docker, QEMU or HyperKit, whatever option is available here, it will choose any one of them. So by default, first preference will be the Docker. See, the moment I am giving minikube start, it is using Docker driver with root privileges. It has automatically selected the Docker driver, right? Now it is pulling the Kubernetes image. Once this image it downloads, it will run as a container, Docker container, and through that Docker container we can start working on Minikube. So what is Minikube? I hope you are aware of what is Kubernetes. Minikube is a single node Kubernetes cluster which is used for testing purpose, development activities. I don't recommend you to go with Minikube if you are planning to learn advanced concepts in Kubernetes like scheduling and all. For that you have to set up multi-node cluster, one control plane and two master nodes, two worker nodes, which will be the next video coming up. So one of our connections in LinkedIn has asked me like what is how to set up this WSL. He is facing some issue, so I thought why don't we give a try. So taking this topic, I have made this video so that instead of connecting with that single person, now this is going to help a lot of people. It's going to take some time. We have to have some patience. Once it is done, we are ready to go. So instead of waiting for this, just to tell you, so what we have done is, see, we can install this Docker or Minikube by simply creating a cloud account like AWS, creating some VM. On top of that VM, like we can create one Linux distribution VM like Ubuntu, right? And on top of Ubuntu VM, we can directly install the Docker, then Minikube. That's it, done. So what, instead of doing like that, what we have done is, on Windows there is one WSLR, which is nothing but Windows compatible Windows Subsystem for Linux. It is a compatible layer provided by the Windows to run Linux binary executables natively on Windows. So by using this feature, right, this feature, we have installed one Linux distribution which is nothing but Ubuntu. On that Ubuntu we have downloaded installed the Docker, then we have installed the Minikube. Yeah, see, you can see from here right now Minikube version 1.33.1 on Ubuntu 22.04. it's automatically selected a Docker driver. So then it is using the Docker driver with root privileges. It has started the Minikube. So primarily control node in Minikube cluster, it is pulling the base image with version 0.0.44, downloading the Kubernetes version 1.30 preloaded. It has successfully created a Docker container with a CPU, 2 CPU and memory 220 MB, 2200 MB. Now it's preparing the Kubernetes cluster on Docker. It is getting certificates, keys, it's booting up the control plane. It's done. Now you can check, as we have already installed the kubelet command, kubectl command, kubectl get node. See, as I have told you, Minikube is nothing but a single node where the control plane components and workload will also be running. So let's see, kubectl get pods -a. So these are pods running right now. You can check kubectl get ns. These are the namespaces you can create. So now at high level you have simply installed a Minikube on Ubuntu using WSL 2. Right. One more thing I have forgot. I was telling about WSL 1, WSL 2. How do you check that whether you are going with WSL 1 or WSL 2? Simply go with official documentation, right? Here there is one option you can go with, like WSL-L-V. Just give it. Okay, as right now we are in Ubuntu, the Linux distribution. So after exiting from here, right, maybe now you can see from here. So already you can see I am using Rancher desktop. It is stop state, then Rancher desktop, it's all stop state. Ubuntu is there, which is running state, right? The version is 2. So you can, by default, you can make the Ubuntu one default by going with this option WSL-set default version. Yeah, you can go with this one, set default. So Ubuntu and the version 2. So the operation is completed successfully. Now you can, whenever you check, so Ubuntu, it is going to be accepted, selected by default. So here you can see the version. If this version is 1, it's better to go with 2. How you can go with 2 is, you can check this WSL-update. You can go with, see, upgradation of version from WSL 1 to version 2. Simply you need to go with install update. So this is the command. This will be set to WSL 2 by default. By default only it is promoting WSL 2, so no issue. But cross check. Why you need to cross check when working with Docker? As I have told you, WSL 1 is not fully compatible, will not fully support Docker features. So whenever you're going with installation of Docker, Minikube and all, better go with WSL 2. Check this one before only installing Docker, so that is going to help you out. So that's it. So now we have successfully installed the Docker Minikube on WSL 2 on Windows system. So that's it for today. Thank you very much. Thank you.